Hey, how you doing? I'm Ben. I like to draw, paint, and sculpt more stylistic stuff. And today I'm going to be walking you through how I use reference, photo reference, and stylize it, but not sticking too close to the reference itself. So sort of skewing away from all the intricacies of a photo reference and making it our own in this sort of stylized character way. Just to set this up, the first thing that I like to think about is kind of like my 2D thinking. So if you imagine this square as a 2D representation all the way up to this cube, and this is just in the sketch stage, right? Imagine me and I'm sliding back and forth between this way of thinking. And I'll sort of shout out when I'm thinking in certain ways, whether it's 2D or 3D or a combination of both. So to begin with, I like to throw down a simple shape that's sort of hitting me. So I'm seeing this kind of triangle shape. We're in 2D land right now. So I want to throw down the neck, okay? Not being super tied to the reference, just getting that basic shape down, getting that ear in there. Still in 2D land, whipping that nose in there. Now, we're not going to go for likeness here. We're just trying to use bits and pieces of the reference to make our character potentially a little bit more believable. I like to think about the eye sockets. All right, so now we're thinking about the eyes, how they kind of go into the head, even this plane of the head here. So now we've gone from 2D to 3D. So we're going to knock this all back and draw on top of this. I'm just going to try and get those lips in here as simple shapes. And you'll notice I'm bouncing around the face. I'm not sticking in one particular area for any super long amount of time. Now the eyes, so it's sort of throwing in the eyelids. I'm not tied to any of my decisions here. This is why we're kind of working a little bit looser, because it gives us that freedom to swap and change simple shapes. All right, and what I'm going to do is flip the canvas. So you can go to view, flip horizontal. Always think about these shapes as 3D objects. Even this nose, we can simplify this nose down into kind of a triangle, cylindry kind of thing. That's what I'm thinking about. Because we understand these shapes, we can manipulate them however we want, and we can be confident with our decisions when we add light and shadow. Go back to our original sketch layer, knock this back, so reduce the opacity. All right, now we're going to refine our thinking a little bit further. And this is where we can take these sketchy lines and just be more decisive with our thinking. This comes down to planes as well. If I don't understand, say, the plane of this cheek, that this is different to that, then I'm going to have a hard time putting light and shadow onto those planes. This is a quick little ear shape I like to do. Just get the outer shape of that ear in 2D and this lip of the ear, almost like a 6. That's a nice little quick ear that you'll see in a lot of my work, for better or worse. Adding in the bulk of the hair, this little bun at the back. I just want an indication here of the 3D shape of the bun. So when it comes to refining the shape, I've got a little bit of context to work with. We've got a nice little base going here. I do want to push the shapes a little bit more, make it a little bit more stylized, but for now, I think we're doing okay. Might do one more pass with the line work, then we can start to add in some values. More or less redoing the whole thing. So I'll zoom in here now. So when I'm doing these iterations, I'm more or less, I guess in a way, redoing. I mean, I will oftentimes draw whole sections again, yes, but a lot of it is underneath here already. We can tweak them, change them. We can do whatever we want. There's complete freedom. I like to add in some of these little flyaway hairs here as well, just as an indication to remember to do them later on, because oftentimes if the hair's looking a little bit plastic, which it can do, adding some of these flyaway hairs does help quite a bit. It's just have an indication of some shadow. It can help just pop certain things out. It can help show depth quickly. Cool, so we've got a nice little base here. Don't be afraid to use the lasso tool either. Utilize the digital tools at your disposal. I used to think that, oh no, it's cheating if you're using digital. Stupid. Just use them. All right. If I want to warp this, moving stuff about, this is very, very useful to just quickly move things. Like if, for example, if I want this chin, you can use liquefy as well, but I like to just see what I can get done with the warp tool. Now we're going to start adding some local colors, right? Some local values. and I'm going to be using something called the Filthy plugin, which myself and my good friend Francis has developed for Photoshop. Now, this is just a speed up tool, okay? There are some things on it that you can't necessarily do in Photoshop, but for you guys that are following along, all you have to do is use the lasso tool as you normally would, and then just fill it in with the paint bucket tool. So if we're coming here and we want to add like a gray color, you can just lasso tool that and fill it in with gray. This just speeds it up, as you'll see in a moment. All right, so we're going to turn the Filthy plugin on. Now I just want to get a shape going to start with. So let's get a shape around the whole drawing. It's a good start. So now I want to get the local colors in here, the local values, let's say. So I'm going to start with a lighter color for the face. So this is the beginning of that black and white to color process. So I'll just do that. Lightens it up a little bit. Now I want to do a different shape for the hair. So encapsulate more or less most of the hair. We can always come in and update that as we go. Now the face is a little bit of work I'm looking at right now, but we can always change that. And then let's do just this bit of the shoulder there, just to change it up. So this is the beauty of it. Keeping the layers, we can go back and forth. So I can add a little bit more to the eye. I might want to bring this forehead down a little bit, give it a little bit more attitude with the nose, like here. And even the mouth, I might even want to push that mouth out just a smidge. And we can do that pretty easily. And then coming back here, using the Filthy tool. So the cool thing you can do with the Filthy plugin as well is you can erase things. So you can come here and just erase sections that are poking out that you don't want. Cool, so now she's got a little bit more attitude, which I'm liking here. Now what I'm going to do is add a multiply layer on top of everything. I'm going to start to separate my lights and my darks, okay? So I'm going to do like a top-down lighting scenario, so the light's on top. What I do want to do as well, for a bit of contrast, is to add something in the background, okay? Something being a darker background or something just to work off of, and just instead of just a stark white, I like to add just something behind the character just to really make it pop. Okay, so now we're still in the Filthy plugin, and now I'm just going to go through and imagine where my lights and my darks are going to be. Again, the light's coming down. This ear is going to be casting a shadow. This lip here is going to be a little bit darker on the top lip because the light's coming down. This nose might even cast a little bit of a shadow. And you notice I haven't really looked at the reference anymore because we've built it up. This is now our playground. We can do whatever we want and still have it feel grounded in some sort of reality because we understand the shapes that we've put down. It's my favorite way to work because it's just freedom. It's just complete and utter freedom. So now I'm just trying to figure out from these shapes that I've invented what's in light and what's in shadow. We can also do this with the hair as well. So the larger shape of the hair. Now, I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before, but how do we keep all of our painting within the lines? That's just using clipping masks. So all you have to do is hold Alt if you want to have a layer on top that keeps all of the pixels within a certain shape. Just go on top. So we've got our base shape here, hold Alt, and then you can create that clipping mask. And that stacks as well. So you can have multiple layers on top of one another that keep within this one. So we can go on top with another multiply layer. And then if I want to make like a little shadow for the hair, I can do that. And it keeps underneath that hair layer. And now I'm just still trying to find these shadow shapes. Maybe that lip's going to be casting a bit of a shadow as well. Let's cast a little bit of a shadow. Now, I might do something over the top of everything. It's light fall off. All right, so if we've got a light up here, I like to have the light focus on the focal point, which is her face. Cool, and then we can come back through with our lasso tool. Then we can come through and erase. Now we're going to be doing some painting on top of this as well. These are just laying the foundations of our values to then build on top of. Okay, so I'm just pushing these darks a little bit more, and I'm going to refine these a lot as well as I go. Even under the chin here. I'm doing a lot of this just with the lasso tool. I'm going to start to add the mid-tones and things like that, which then helps keep it simple. We're not worrying about edges too much. We're not worrying about any of the super little details, the subtle transitions, nothing like that. I'm just coming through and using the lasso tool to do a lot of the heavy lifting. Looking with the hair here. I know it's going to look very different in this stage. Just from experience, it's good to know that because I don't stress out as much, because I used to get to a certain point and I used to just be like, oh, it's not looking good. I'll nuke it and then start again, you know? I would do that a lot. The amount of just unfinished sketches is, yeah, embarrassing. So nothing set in stone, even if you're working traditionally as well. You can always paint over stuff. Here's some of these flyaway hairs, which can give a little bit more character. Now what I might do is just go to a normal layer, no layer modes with this one, update the brush and change the shape dynamics to nothing. So it's just going to be a flat brush, and then we'll start to refine some of these values. You know, and if you're there at the moment, being really stressed out, it'll pass. It doesn't help anything, put it that way. It doesn't make you better, beating yourself up about not doing a good drawing. No one really cares as well. So you're better off just trying to do your best to not let it get to you. Just coming from experience where I used to let it get to me a lot. Man, all those unfinished drawings. But now, keeping in grayscale still, not even thinking about color at this stage. Even down here, I like to sometimes use the lasso tool. And just use the lasso tool normally, without the plugin, to give me like a hard edge to then add a nice little gradient there, and then I can do a little trick. So I think on PC it's Control-Shift-Invert, which inverts the selection, and then we can come through and kind of give that, and smudge it out just a tad, give that illusion of form kind of wrapping around. At this stage, a lot of it is just looking to see if it looks cool or not. There's not too much of a rhyme or reason. Like this is where I might even get style reference to see if I can push and pull certain shapes. Like there's certain things here at the moment, like the eyes and the lips aren't quite where I'm wanting them to be. We'll fix that. Because we're using these simple shapes to begin with, we know exactly where they are. There's not too much guesswork. There is still a bit of guesswork, but then we can come through and make that adjustment on anything. Like we'll make the big adjustments. I reckon it might be time to merge everything down, because if we want to make some larger adjustments, this makes it a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group all the layers. I'm going to duplicate that group, and then I'm going to go Control E, which merges them all down. So now everything is all just on one layer. So now I'm going to start shifting shapes around the place. Change the expression a little bit, maybe a little bit more attitude. A bit of this, a bit of this with the nose, up a little bit. Again, just really as simple as I can. Let's start to play around with the silhouette as well. Yeah, look, at the moment, it's not really where I want it to be, but that's to be expected. We're going to keep refining this, and as we sort of lay the values on here, we'll get to a result that I'm happy-ish with. We're going to come over the top of this, and we're going to colorize the values, where our values will kind of stay pretty intact, and we're going to use layer modes like color, multiply, color dodge and overlay, and all those fun color modes to give ourselves a good base to then finish up and then just do normal painting over the top of them. All right, so I want to look at gradients as well, like this whole shape here, because the more refinement that we do here, the faster that the color section can be. Don't want to rush this too much. A lot of it is just going back and forth, seeing what's looking right, what's looking wrong. And what I'll do sometimes as well is use an alpha lock. So here you click the layer, choose this little checkerboard pattern, and then that's another way to be able to draw within the shape. It's stuff like that that you slowly start to see. It's like, okay, now I can see that like a ledge, a plane that's facing downwards. All right, and then we can come through and get some of these occlusion shadows going in here. But I don't want to get too dark with my values, because I want to have some room later on when I've got context with color to make value adjustments as well. Trying to tie all the values together, because this is looking okay, like the eye's feeling good, but this is feeling, I think, a little bit too light. So what we can do is our little trick that we did before with the airbrush. So we'll come with the airbrush, scale it up a tad, multiply. So this is, again, this isn't a linear process. We can go back and forth. If I really wanted to, I can come through and redo some of the line work here. I'm not going to, but there's no rules to any of this stuff. But yeah, just giving it that little bit of treatment there, can kind of tie it together just a little bit. I think we can darken the background a bit to make things pop. I think what I'm going to do is do a pass of values on the hair, and then we'll start laying in some of these colors. I might even make it a mask, make it a clipping mask so it keeps within a larger shape, and just knock in the roundness of that hair. All right, and that's going to be of benefit to us by then coming through here, even doing a selection. Okay. All right, maybe that's too much, so we can just bring it back a little bit of that form, and then we can come through here and make some selections to make some kind of strands. I love the lasso tool, it's so versatile. And delete, so then we get some quick texture in the hair. We might even keep the hair a little bit more on the messy side. So there was a time where I would stop after this point. I would not touch color, but hopefully in this video, I can give you a little bit of confidence yourself to play around with grayscale. Okay, so what we're going to do, just like we did with our local values, we're going to separate them out into local colors now. So I'm going to grab the skin. We're going to use the magical color layer mode. We're going to choose a skin color. Okay. And now that's way too saturated, but you can notice that it's kept our value structure semi-intact. All right, so now we can come through and adjust the intensity. Okay, even the color. And we can build this up over time as well. So we can start off with this kind of base here, which I don't mind. And then let's get the hair going. So let's select. Now we've got the hair selected. Let's do the same thing. Let's maybe do like, I don't know, blue hair. Do like a warm, cool contrast thing. So this is what it looks like as a normal layer. Turn it to color and bam, we've got something to work with. Knock it down a little bit. If you've never got into color before, this is a good start. Just to start playing around with some things. Let's start adding some color variation. Now color variation, you can go crazy with it. I like to do a pretty standard first pass of the color variation. Let's add a little bit of the red in the ear, a little bit of red in the nose, right? Maybe go a bit overboard to begin with, okay? Because we can always knock it back. Okay, maybe do a little bit of yellow in the forehead. You might have seen like an image somewhere where it's like the color zones of the face. So this is like a separate layer, a skin layer. So this is without color variation, and this is with color variation. Just doing another layer on top using multiply and just having a play around with different colors. But I might even want to go in the shadows here and cool that down a little bit. Maybe in all the shadows, we can come through and cool it down just a tad, just to add a little bit of interest. So this is really just giving us a nice palette to work with. So we're going to do the same thing with the hair. Let's select this, create the layer, make it a clipping mask. Let's experiment, let's play. Okay, there we go. So we can test out different things or multiply, so there's really bump up the saturation. Okay, just a kind of ombre, I guess you could say, in the hair world. Do a little bit of that, maybe some freckles or some indication of this on the nose. And as we go and we paint over these will sort of fade away in the distance, but it just gives a bit of character, you know? At this stage, I'm going to once again merge, duplicate, and we're going to just paint. I want to start adding in some of the specular highlights that we were talking about before, so we can use the screen layer mode. I like to think of it as a matte finish to begin with. And then you've got the specular highlight, which is basically the shininess of the object. That's going to reflect the environment around it. And oftentimes that environment is a light source. So you can see that we've got the matte finish here, and we can very quickly make this eyelid look shiny. Just like that, like in this inner eye section. It's quite nice to add in a little bit of the specular highlight. Playing here on the nose might be something that we can play around with and sort of fade out. Even a little bit within the nose here. That plane might be a little bit similar. And we can come through and erase this as well if it's too intense. This is where we start to get subtlety in the skin, and it slowly starts to build up as we understand where those specular highlights are going to sit. And then once we've got this, we can then continue to refine here, erase, 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 erase. We're going to add that highlight here. Let's get to filling. So it automatically fills it for us. Slowly comes through, reference. You want to make sure that we understand the forms of the face so that we can duck in where it makes sense, where the plane might catch more light on that chin as well, you know, and just really even reducing the opacity here and just layering that on. All right, now we've got that illusion of that kind of glow, and then we can knock that back again. Adding in, let's have a look, color burn. So in that nostril where that skin is going to be quite thin, that light is pretty harsh. So we can come through and really not color burn, we want color dodge. Shout out Ross Draws.
It's color dodge time.
Okay, so that gives that nice little illusion. I mean, that's pretty intense, but we can knock that back even more. Okay. You're really going to see where I use that intense saturated color to show that subsurface scattering, which is really just the light bouncing within the skin and reflecting in itself with all the blood vessels and that kind of thing. So certain parts of the face are going to be more intense red if you shine light through them than others. So now we've got something similar to our reference, not a one-to-one copy, but we're starting to learn from the reference where that might be showing up. And even a little bit along the nose here, we can emulate. Where we're at the moment, we've done our sketch, our values, started to block in some of these colors, and now we've started to play around with the lighting and really show more of the form. Now it's going to be refinement to just kind of make it more visually interesting. So we're on the background layer. I've just gone Command or Control U to give us the hue and saturation options. So these are still pretty dark, but if we crank up the brightness and even get it more of like a, I don't know, like a school bussy, something similar to that. That could work, make it pop a little bit. Now, because we've got our values in place, I can start to play around with some of these more out there kind of color notes. So let's get back to the filthy plugin, and I can just start to play. Right, we might just start whipping in some of these. Oh, maybe not that bright. I want to keep the saturation high. Really, like in the darkest darks is where I like to sometimes add just some of these little color notes, even a bit of this in there. Even in here, we can start to add some color variation. Now with the filthy plugin, you can try, if you've got this value here, you can go luminance lock. So you can choose the value that you want, and then you can start to add in a little bit of color variation, but it keeps the same value. I think there could be an opportunity for a nice drop shadow. So we're going to knock that right back with our eraser tool. And then we can even delete a section of it here. But now we've got that shadow here in this neck. I might clean that up completely. So I might just imagine that that doesn't exist anymore. I think the hair needs a little bit of sheen. So we can do that again with the lasso tool if we want to be a little bit quicker with it. I mean, we could leave it like that, or we could undo it and get our simple airbrush. And just a little light pass with it. I think maybe we try and have a look at that other light source coming from this way, see what that can do for us. So we'll just experiment. Maybe we do like more of like a little orange light. See how that works for us. Then erase that right the way back. It's very subtle. Increase the brightness underneath there and see how that feels. With a big airbrush, really high saturation, multiply layer, and then try different variations. And see how we can blend that in. It's sketchy. It's like there's a clear gradient of the values that make more sense. Okay, here she is. I hope you like her. I hope you learnt a little bit. It's not a quick process. Sometimes I don't want to spend all my time doing the values first and then adding the color over the top. Sometimes I just want to go straight to color, which you definitely can do. This is just one way. So give it a shot and you might like it. If not, take bits and pieces that you've learned that might be useful to you and run with them.
There's more to learn from Ben Eblen's premium lessons at proko.com/beneblen. In his course, Illustrating a Stylized Character, Ben goes over his process for a full figure illustration, tackling his start to finish process. You even get his 3D models and an ebook guide to figure drawing. In the Proko Digital Painting Fundamentals course, Ben joins us as a guest instructor to cover his digital techniques when illustrating portraits. And Ben has a really interesting process coloring his pieces. He uses a tool he developed called the Filthy Photoshop plugin. And if you want to get filthy yourself, go check out all his stuff on proko.com/beneblen.